but by the time I was a teenager, I was a total atheist, and I thought all this was stupid. And I actually would have ridiculed it as like daddy issues. I don't know how much the ridicule of a 12 or a 14-year-old is worth in the scheme of things, but that was my experience.
So you kind of mocked it as a kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
attempt to find fake meaning just because you lacked a daddy or something.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That it was kind of, as the kids say today, it was a cope. It was like,
Right.
you had to grow up and face the awful truth of the world, the awful finitude of existence, and get on with your life. And that life was material. And, and frankly about like getting pleasure from life too. So that was where I came from it as a teenager, as a young teenager.
And when did that begin to wear off? Like, what was the?
Well, I had, in trying to get pleasure, I had a beautiful evangelical girlfriend at one point in high school, and in hanging around with her, she started pushing me towards these like youth groups she was in, and frankly, I met really impressive men in those groups who could speak seriously about theology, philosophy, history, and who could really challenge me in the way a mentoring relationship should be. And from then I had, as some teenagers do, I had kind of these intense religious experiences. When you feel yourself to be like a swaggering atheist for a few years, and then all of a sudden you put yourself onto your knees and pray, and feel a kind of like humiliation wash over you, and then lightness and like airiness of being, it was transformative. And from then on, I knew I believed, almost like helplessly believed in God, even if I wouldn't want to, right? Like, even if I'd love to get away from him, like I couldn't stop believing.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Now, but tell me, I mean, if you don't mind, I mean, give me an example of that. I mean, I had several in my teen years and early adulthood. Haven't in recent years, to be honest. But that sense of, as a teenager in the modern world, say, of walking into a dark and unfashionable place,
right,
kneeling down and acknowledging your utter frailty and the ability to turn your life over in a way to something greater than yourself, and something that's been evolving for thousands of years with a language and a liturgy and a tradition that is so much greater and bigger than you. A very countercultural thing to do at that point in time in your life and in the world, but also quite a radicalizing one, I imagine.
Well, yeah, and it felt that way. I remember it felt like a kind of teenage rebellion, right? Like, that my mother and my father, through his letters, they were practical people, in a way. They didn't have a lot of time for religion. Maybe there were some sentiments and sentimentality about it. Maybe even some wishing that they could believe. And then I was this, like, in my heart, I was turning into this zealous teenager. And yeah, it felt good. And it was also an intellectual awakening, right?
Right.
Because, I sense suddenly had this deep impulse in my heart to read and to understand, and to become fluent in this, and then also to and to be able to stand up for myself,
right? Because obviously at that point, being in any way religious as a teen puts you very much in the minority and very much on the defensive, and so you kind of armor up.
Right. No, that's like, yeah.
That's exactly what I did. I mean, I could give you the arguments about transubstantiation at the age of 11 that would knock you dead. I mean, I had mastered it. I had sort of learned all the rhetorical and logical arguments in defense of Catholicism, which again, also in England, that was not
Yeah.
exactly a popular position to hold when you were 15 or 16.